Hi, this is Mahabeli from the American University in Cairo, and today we have Nancy White, who's going to talk to us about eco-cycle planning, and she's going to introduce the liberating structure, and then we'll get going with it.
Okay, thanks, Maha. I'm coming to you from the Swinomish lands on ceded territory on the western coast of Washington State in the United States, not Washington, D.C., the good Washington. And I wanted to share Ecocycle because it has become central to my practice of a way to make sense of what's going on, to look back, to see the present and look towards the future. So today we're going to eco-cycle some real stuff that Maha and her colleagues are working on. But I want you to think as you listen is what is it in your life that you're trying to figure out what to do with it? It could be personal, it could be work, it could be family, it could be community. It could be something you have to do with other people or just has to do with just you. And put your brain in that space as you watch this today. So Maha's going to set us up with the context because we don't do things for no reason, right? Doing a fake eco-cycle can help show the mechanics of it, but frankly, it misses the value. It doesn't really bring in the real stuff. So having a purpose, and one of the liberating structure's value is start with purpose, or at the minimum, understand you don't have purpose and work towards purpose. So Maha is going to set us up with a purpose. And that's the basis and the rationale for doing this. And it's also what we'll check against as we do the eco-cycle. So give us the purpose, Maha.
Right. So Nancy and I were talking, and I thought it would be good to do an eco-cycle plan on how to improve a curriculum that already exists, which is something that maybe professors would do together if they all teach the same course, or maybe they could do it with their students to get their feedback on how to make the course better, or the curriculum. And instead of doing a fake one, because that would make no sense, we're going to talk about the community building resources of which this is part. Because we've been doing it since mid-August, and now the semester is changing. So I think maybe we need to also renew what we're doing with that. So let me just quickly share my screen so people know what it is we're talking about. There's a couple of people in the room who have probably no idea what this is, but everyone else has been involved in some way or another. But maybe not everyone.
There'll be resonance.
There'll be resonance, yeah.
Even
so
for different domains.
Right, exactly. And it's relevant outside of education, I think, as well. So the idea is that because a lot of people have to be online these days, especially in education, that don't have the background in e-learning, a lot of the quick emergency stuff did not focus so much on community building, but it's really, really important in these times because of the trauma that everyone's going through, the social distancing, that this community building piece is really, really important. And people who don't have the experience of it, who haven't been in community online like a lot of us here have been, take time to imagine that this is even possible. They don't even try. And so these activities are supposed to sort of show them how would you do this by demoing them with a short video or with some text to explain. So we've sort of given these categories, and that's important for the eco-cycle planning, I think, to look at the different categories. So there's, of course, everything. And then there's introductory activities, things you would do the first couple of classes in your class, or at the beginning of a longer session if you're giving a workshop. And then liberating structures, and then things that you would do for ongoing engagement, things for setting the tone, and warm-up activities that you would do just at the beginning of every class. And so, for example, there are liberating structures like METI and impromptu networking that are also warm-up activities. So things can obviously overlap. And again, spiral journal is one of those. And so those are the things. Some of them have obvious names. If you know liberating structures, you'll know what those are. Some of the other things you'd have to look a little bit more closely to understand what it is. Some of them are just text-based, but for the majority of them, they're videos describing what we're doing. So I'm going to stop sharing for now, but we might need to share again as we're going through the eco-cycle process, right, Nancy?
Sorry, my husband just walked in the door with a stone duck, a plastic duck. I mean,
okay.
Welcome
maybe
to
cheer. Maybe there's another meltdown, and
at
this
least
is
it's
going to
not
help with that.
An online learner meltdown. Okay, so Sue and Irene, because you're not in the higher ed domain on your day, you might be, but I don't know that you are on a day-to-day basis. I'm going to invite you to take the role of critical friends today. And critical friends go like, what do you mean by that? What? What's that? So you're going to take the role of helping us clarify, because sometimes when we're really close to something, it's actually harder to see it. So I think it's really advantageous when you're eco-cycling in a group is to have your critical friends or people who are just far enough away who will call you on like, that's not clear. But, but they're good enough friends that when they tell you you have broccoli between your teeth, they do it in a loving way. They don't mock you out in public, right? So that's why I love critical friends to be part of an experience. So we're going to also play on two levels here. We're going to play with two different technologies for using Ecocycle. One of the things that has become very clear to me in this post-COVID time is that Ecocycle lends itself enormously well to being done online. And in fact, if it's used as an ongoing tool, the digital artifacts are easier to add to, subtract to, rather than having a giant piece of paper that you haul around and some people can see it and some people can't see it. So in fact, folks who I did paper-based Ecocycles a year ago, they're now moving their Ecocycles online so that they can more collaboratively use them as basically a monitoring and evaluation system. So, this tool has lots of plasticity. I'm not going to go into the history behind Ecocycle. If you go to the Liberating Structures, you can get a little background of where it came from out of complexity science. But I do want to say that what makes it super useful is it comes from complexity science. And it helps us look at a context through more than one perspective and acknowledges that not everything is linear, that things operate in cycles, they morph, they change. There's places and systems that get stuck. And when we have just a traditional to-do list or a set of activities we're trying to get done, we often miss the importance of where something is in its evolution. So I see this as being able to really productively work in a complex environment and still have a practical next step. This is what I can do to take this forward instead of feeling like, oh, I can't do this. And this is, to me, the joy of Ecocycle. So I'm going to share my screen first, and I'm going to just introduce you to the kind of approach to it, and so we can see this together. Then we're going to do the identification of activities together, and then we're going to plot them on the Ecocycle in two different spaces so that we can evaluate Google Docs and Mural as two different platforms for ecocycling. There are pros and cons of both of them. And then we can come back and see what was different and what was similar. So as we, Maha, I'm going to rely on you to break us up into two groups that reflect that diversity of viewpoints so that we can work together. This particular online template, by the way, there's a URL to the base slides, which is a read-only file that you can make a copy of. So if you want the Google Slides template, it is all ready. I'm working on a Mural template that can be shared, but I haven't gotten the proverbial round to it to do. There's some background stuff here on liberating structures. So if you're using this template with a group, all the materials are right there. And it's helpful to give everybody, I'm telling how to do this as well as do this. Is that okay, Maha? Normally I don't narrate the narration, but right now I'm narrating the narration. It's a little bit much. But we start by looking at the Ecocycle, which is fittingly the infinity symbol. And I walk people through the kind of parts of it. So maturity is the stuff that we know how to do, that we can predict the outcome, that we know if we do this, we'll get that. It's something we can teach other people and pretty reliably know that they'll be able to do in some cases, or if as they develop expertise, they'll be able to do it. So in higher education, that's one of the aspirations for teaching and learning. It's like people can do this stuff. As we come to the descending side of maturity, we have what's called the rigidity trap. So I don't know, if any of you are in institutions, how many things that you do that you have no idea why you're doing them, and you hear because we've always done it that way, but you can't tell what value that's producing. So this is the rigidity trap of things we're not letting go of. And whereas the role of the manager is often to keep those things going on, there needs to be some energy that helps us figure out what to let go of. And so, the maturity is the area of the manager. Creative destruction is the domain of the heretic. And often you may need to change the names of these labels so it's culturally appropriate where you're at, because in some places that would be a totally unacceptable term. So I want to call out that you need to think about context for these labels, right? But creative destruction is what can we release so that we can really focus on the stuff we really want, the place for renewal. And this is often the hardest area to work on, but there's some particular liberating structures that are very useful here. And I want to call out TRIZ, T-R-I-Z, as a perfect thing to do if you find you've got a lot in the rigidity trap and you can't even talk about creative destruction. So then you clear the space. And once we come down and we come back up the other side, we have renewal. And renewal is the area of the network weaver as the leader, the exploring possibilities. You know that, well, Maha probably personifies this, but you know, the person who knows a million people and is always bringing in new ideas and is connecting people and looking across domains. Well, this works in higher education and this works in health too. What is it about those two that are really useful? So they make connections. And, you know, often it is in a non-linear and a networked mode. Now, sometimes the managers like look there and their heads explode. Okay, oh, I can't take all these ideas. It's a tremendously creative area. But when you start compiling too many ideas and nothing happens. And we've been actually renaming this often the resource trap instead of the poverty trap, because poverty is a very politically and culturally laden term. And I want to call that out. But this is the original work, so I'm keeping the original work as our starting point. But we need to figure out how to move something from renewal to birth. And one of the liberating structures we often use here is 15% solution. What is the first step? Because the first step is really what you need all the time. It's critical. There goes the child coming in again. Hello, love, I love you, goodbye. This is work from home, folks. This is work from home. She didn't like that. So once we get past the poverty trap, then we get into birth. And this is kind of like, you know, the person who can plan things and test things and try things, very entrepreneurial in terms of moving an idea forward, not just thinking about the idea. And some people say like, well, how do I know if something's in renewal or birth? If you haven't taken a first step, it is not in birth. And if you've talked about it, it's in the poverty trap. You know, it's like, okay. So the rigidity trap and the poverty trap are these really important areas to notice because typically that's where we have leverage. Now, here's another piece that I usually don't say up front, I say afterwards, but as we're thinking about building our capacity to do this is when we look at a portfolio of work or a portfolio of relationships or a portfolio of ice cream flavors, our leaders often want to see everything from a perspective of maturity. So I've been doing this a lot with grantees of major funders in agricultural development. And the funders are always talking about maturity and deliverables and impact. What this does is helps us see that if you do not treat the whole system, if one thing goes wrong in maturity, everything dies. You need to be keeping your portfolio moving across the ecocycle. It's not evenly, you don't have to have 3 things in each area, but you have to be able to see the progression of your work in order to constantly have something in maturity when you're operating in a complex environment. So when you think of your, what's it called? One. It's called One.
Oh, Equity Unbound, the community building resources thing.
Yeah.
It's OneHE is the funder of it. Yeah.
Okay. So when you look at that, you want to think about your portfolio so that you're keeping it moving. And you also want to recognize where there's unpredictabilities and you have to still keep moving things in unpredictabilities. And this is when eco-cycle planning lends itself to doing critical uncertainties. Before you move into birth, you might want to evaluate them up in renewal to see, you know, am I getting enough robust strategies and enough hedging strategies to get something to maturity when I don't have control over certain important factors. So that's the lecture. I'll take a pause on that.
I just have a question. You said you wouldn't normally narrate that much. How would you explain it to people without narrating that much?
I would say as we're going to assess our current portfolio of work and relationships and learn from that. I do, then I talk about the quadrants. I don't talk about how to do it. I don't talk about the other liberating structures. This is interesting. Keith McCandless, one of the co-founders, when I was doing an intro to this last year at an immersion, he says, that was a great introduction, except you said too much. And when you're introducing a liberating structure, that's that point. That's sort of a practice piece that's really important. The first time we do it, we're kind of following the instructions. But over time, we're bringing in our experience into how we talk about that structure. And sometimes we can get carried away with our narrative. So I get carried away with the narrative. I will own that. So
you would basically just say, you know, there are some things we're doing that we got to keep doing, things that, you know, we need to stop doing because they're not working anymore, and new things that we need to either renew or completely new ideas that we haven't even tried yet.
Right? Yes. And I also call out the traps. because when they
Yes,
start
the traps are
placing their
important.
activities, we need to call out the traps. So
Yes.
then in this particular deck, I customize this. So here is the, later on we'll come back, this is the link to the mural, because we're going to break up, and one group's going to do it on Google Docs and one's going to do it on Mural. But I have the same instructions on that, and I'll just flip to the mural really quickly. You know, I think I actually edited the instructions a little bit here. Every time I do something, it evolves a little bit more. But what I want us to do is to go through those steps. So I'm going to stop screen sharing, and we're going to use the chat. Okay. So I'm going to put a little marker in the chat. So I want you to first by yourself on a piece of paper, or, you know, if you want to do it on another thing, that's fine. But for your pen, see, Autumn, this gives you immediately a chance to use your new thing. Where is it? Oh, there you are. You moved boxes. I want you to make a list of all the activities that you guys are doing for this community that you're building. And Sue and Leanne, you're going to be a little bit on the back foot on this. So you could just make stuff up, because you might have ideas about how we learn practices that we're using for learning, because while you're not in a higher education, you're in learning. It's around us everywhere. So take a minute and make a list of those activities. Now, I'm going meta here. I could have everybody type them into chat, or I could have them write them alone. In liberating structures, one of the important practices is to give everybody a moment alone. And when you put it in the chat, it starts interrupting that moment alone. So if we didn't put it in the chat, we still have to copy it over to the chat. So there's a cost and a benefit here. I'm choosing to go, everybody write it down so everybody can just do it. And Maha, you might want to pause the recording while we give them a minute to write it down, because it's kind of boring to watch us staring at our.
That's true. That's true. I was just going to say something real quick. The other option is to have people type it but not click enter until you say so.
That's we could do the Chatterfall version. So I think that's a great thing. So type it in, but don't hit enter.
Okay. So I'm going to pause the recording for a second, but someone please remind me to unpause. Ask it again, Autumn.
Okay, I'm really sorry. Just really quickly, I'm a tiny bit confused about what we're typing. Is it specifics, like technical specifics of what we're doing to build this resource?
I would say all the specifics for building it, for using it, for marketing it, for improving it, for helping people own it, all the things that build to your aspiration. And this goes to purpose, okay? So we didn't actually spend time saying what's the purpose of this site and everybody agreeing on it. And that's actually a really driving thing that can help people get more specific about their response to their activities, okay? So
yeah, I sort of dictated that. It was a bit authoritarian there.
This is a demo, so. Do you want to repeat that again, the purpose?
So the purpose is to provide educators or facilitators with community building activities that are easy to create online, and giving them a demo of how you would do it, plus a lot of adaptations and things that you need to think about and resources that they can use to help them do it, basically. And so actually it's good that Autumn asked that question, because what I thought originally is just a list of what are the things that we have there. But there are also a lot of pieces that are not things on their own, but they're things we do to make it happen.
Right.
Like the transcription, like, yeah.
So this is when this discussion is like, often when you say like, well, should we first eco-cycle all the bits and pieces and then eco-cycle the activities? In this case, let's focus on the activities and see what happens. The third thing you often are resourcing are your eco-cycling are the relationships, who's doing what and roles. And that could be a very powerful door in. But let's just go with activities, because if people looked on the Ecocycle site, it's typically framed in terms of activities. So what are we doing to make this resource, market this resource, engage people in this resource? And not the bits and pieces. Oh, you know, making that bit would be an example. Okay, let's pause the recordings again.
All right, so everyone's ready now to hit enter and share, and that's not going to show in the recording. So
either everybody hit enter and we'll look at it. And that was about 3 minutes. We aren't being exhaustive. Sometimes it takes longer than that. And sometimes it's iterative, which you'll see in a moment. So I want everyone to take a minute to scroll back and see we've got how to access resources, making videos, creating a safe and open space to explore cultural preconceptions. I'm just doing a brief reading so that those listening to the recording can look at it. Mid-semester assessment, building a website, tweeting. So, you know, as we see here, we start seeing some categories. One of the things that often we do is we put a category down there and it's not specific enough. Or we might say, tweet every Thursday and Friday, which might be too specific. So marketing is too general. Tweeting every Thursday and Friday, and here's what should be in the tweet on Thursday. It's a little too specific. So what we're doing is, you know, getting a sense of this. So I only see, let's see, I see stuff. No, I see stuff from everybody. Okay. It just flowed a lot faster. So let me go back to the screen share because we're gonna part ways here soon. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to copy all those from the chat into the Google Doc. So one person in that team and the other team is going to copy them into the mural. And when we get into the mural, I can show people how to do that because the two tools behave differently for here. But I'm going to give the instructions using the Google Doc, and then we're going to divide into breakout groups, and we're going to try ecocycling. So let's pretend the list is all here. And we're now going to place them someplace on the site. So sometimes I'll make a whole bunch of Post-it notes. Sometimes I won't. This time I don't think I made a ton of Post-it notes. But give me one of the things from the list, Maha, that might be in gestation, just because I happen to be over there.
Like it's a new idea.
Yeah.
I would say the one that Rissa said, which is identify practice times and like sort of announce practice times, because what we've been doing so far is like I tell a few people like today and they join, but I haven't been, and there are some people who say, oh, when do you do these things? We'd like to join. And so that could be something that we formalize. It's an idea that we've been talking about for a while and we haven't. Right? Gestation is an idea that hasn't been birthed yet, right?
And where would you put it? Have you started thinking about it, or this is a brand new idea?
We've started thinking about it. We kept saying we're going to do it, but we've never done it properly. And we sort of do it a little bit by telling people who aren't always with us to join us sometimes.
Okay. So it's not a practice, but it actually might be a little bit, it could be something that, you know, it's interesting. It could actually be something that's in birth, but it's not birthed very far.
Okay. Yeah, it could be. Yeah. So I think we haven't resourced it. So it's getting close to that poverty trap.
Yeah. So in your groups, you're going to have a discussion about where each thing is placed. Now in Google Docs, it's hard to get too many Post-its in here. There isn't as much space. So oftentimes with the list, let's see, announce. So, you know, pretend this is all done. I'm going to make this font smaller because you're going to have more of them.
Yeah.
I go ahead and I hit the numbering button. And then when I get to the Ecocycle, that would be number 1.
Ah, I see. Okay.
Because there's just no way you can get all the stuff in there. So typically I'll ask one person keep an eye on the list and call out the things while someone else places it onto the Ecocycle.
I see.
You don't want everybody messing with
complicated.
Ecocycle at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, that would be so bad. But what I was thinking is something slightly different. I'm sorry, I'm already riffing off of it. But I was thinking that you could at first in text say, put headings, you know, gestation, maturity, creative destruction, birth, and then start putting things into it so that you have these already, like, or you can make 4 text boxes. And then you do the calling out of the numbers, but then you can start each one with a different number so that you don't have to. But the thing is that you need to discuss where they're going to end up, and when you start doing that, you make it more difficult to move it.
Yeah, so I think if you were dealing with a pretty complex domain that you're ecocycling, and lots of people, you might do that. But if you had such a complex situation and that many people, this is when you say, okay, first you're going to do this in groups of 4, and then we're going to come together. So that 1, 2, 4 all pattern of liberating structure sometimes is super useful on an ecocycle, because you can't process lots of data in a large group. Every increment of the number of person becomes, it's harder to sense make the data. Okay. But you want the whole group to eventually sense make the data. That's why you can compare across ecocycles. So today we're going to break up into 2 groups, Each group can decide how they want to do it. But what you want to do is end up with an ecocycle that has all your stuff all over, and that you guys have come to agreement about where things are. Now, what if you disagree? First is it the level of specificity that makes you think you could put it in 4 different places, right? Well, then you break it down into smaller bits. If it is really truly something you feel is there's fundamental disagreement, I think it's helpful to call it out in a different color. So come on, you know, let's call that out in color.
That is very interesting.
Because so if I think it's here, okay, and you think it is here, it's really important to dig into this. So oftentimes teams think they're on the same page, and when you start ecocycling the items, they realize they might not know what each other's talking about. That's one thing. Or they may see the world very differently, or that item very differently. So this becomes a non-judgmental place to discuss those things we feel differently about. Or to
I've always felt like it could be quite sensitive, because if we're a department, like if we talk about an actual department working, is like sometimes the thing that you're saying creative destruction is actually my work, or I own it and someone else thinks that it needs to be destroyed, right? How do you handle that?
It is totally sensitive. Now, I can answer that now. We can come back. I'll answer it now. You've opened the can of worms. So when you look at rigidity trap, often people feel if their current activity was deleted, they would be deleted. And it's important to remember, creative destruction is about making space for something that is now called into being, that is now relevant. So how do we take the talents, the resources in something in creative destruction and repurpose it in gestation, birth, or even maturity? So as I think about Ecocycle, the initial reaction is there's a lot of avoidance here in creative destruction, but it becomes a place to talk about how do we really use your talents? Right now, you're doing something that adds no value and you are fantastic. I would rather you, Ms. or Mr. Fantastic, be doing something that adds value. And the manager also feels a lot better about it because it moves the things they need to get moving that eventually lands up in maturity. So you're looking at your talent pool or your resource pool from a larger, complex perspective rather than a task perspective. So activities, you know, are tasks, but they have to be for the purpose. And if you ever have a doubt if something belongs in the rigidity trap, we said, if we stop doing this, would we still be achieving our purpose? And if the answer is yes, get it into creative destruction and take those resources that created it and move them elsewhere. So all of a sudden we begin to see ourselves as part of the whole, not just the little task that we've been associated with. And that's incredibly liberating. There is a moment where it can be very uncomfortable, Maha.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So break it down, discuss it, put it on there. I want to
All
just.
right. How many minutes do I send people to breakout rooms? And Autumn and Hoda, can one of you record the breakout room? Autumn, you're already recording locally, so it probably will continue recording. We know sometimes weird things happen with that, but hopefully it will keep going.
I'll double check when I get in the room.
I just want
How many minutes?
Hold on one second. I just want to briefly show the difference in murals for the recording's purpose as a whole.
Sure, of course. Yeah,
I put 3 Ecocycle blanks here. We'll only use 1. But if our breakout groups out, breakout 1 could use Ecocycle 1 and breakout 2 can use Ecocycle 2. So you can still use breakout rooms. And what we do is when you put the timer on the Zoom thing, we also put the timer on a mural because it's easy to lose track of time when you're looking at another artifact, not at mural and not at Zoom, right?
Yeah.
So let's do a 10-minute breakout. We probably won't finish, but it will give us a sense. And when we get into the Ecocycle planning, I'll show you guys how to take the text from the chat and it immediately creates. Actually, let me show this because it's super cool. So give me just 1 second before we pop out.
Yes.
I need to stop share for 1 second. And I need to get the list. Okay. The list. It's crowning. We have birth here. I used to work in maternal child health. So that's really funny. Okay, so I'm copying this. I'm Control C. Now I'm going to go back to screen share. I had difficulty. So I'm going to zoom in here. Zoom in a little bit more. and then I'm going to do Control V, and boom, everything is in a box. And then I get rid of
The
get rid
names
of-
are just copied.
I get rid of those. And then everything is already transcribed, ready to go into the thing. And I got to tell you, this is such an easier way to do it.
Yeah,
And-
mural is fantastic.
Yeah. So, and, and sometimes, okay, I probably should have taken them all and got the font bigger. There's little things because I'm showing this fast, but when the group gets into the mural and I forgot one
Oh,
thing.
you need to put the link to the mural
Yep,
in the chat.
that's exactly right. Okay. You and I hit the same word. Okay. So there's the mural link. We're going to go for 10 minutes. And then when we come back, I'd like one person to share the story of your Ecocycle as it exists in this moment in time. Okay. We
Okay.
clear?
Okay. Yep. All
Got it.
right.
Send
I'm
me
sending
away.
you guys. All right. 10 minutes. See you soon. And then the rest of us are staying here. All right. Let's get started. I have so many things that I want to do now. So do you want to put us the link to the Google Slides?
Can I just
Yes.
ask that it asks me to join mural, sign in?
Yeah, but you don't need to go to Mural, Sue. You're here with us.
Okay.
Oh, she's putting you in the Google one.
Okay.
It would be great if we could do a bit of mural because that's what we need to be working on. I see.
Do you
I
want to
know.
go? Do you want to go to
So-
Mural?
Either Leanne or I need to
Send
go.
only one of you though.
I need to
wants
go
to
to
go?
mural, don't I?
Leanne, go
No,
to
I
mural.
want you here.
Can you put Leanne into mural?
Okay, so I'll send one of you, but I need someone here, or
I'm
bring
here,
someone
I'm here.
back.
I'm here.
You're gonna stay here with Google Docs,
Yeah.
and I'll send Leanne. Okay, I'll
And
send
send Leanne to mural.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. So someone in mural knows how to do mural. I don't have to worry about them.
Yeah, Hoda knows how to use Mural. Yeah. Ah, you know what? I'm supposed to be able to. Oh, okay. I can easily send you. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
All right, Leanne.
I'll
Bye.
Okay.
I thought I could create new rooms, but I can't for some reason, but that's okay. All right. So do you want to share your screen, Nancy, or do you want me to open it and share my screen?
No, you do it. I will sit on the sidelines. Why don't you lead it?
Okay, I'll do that. Let's
So
see
we'll
what
start on
happens.
slide 6.
Okay. Let me share my screen and go to slide 6. Okay, here we go. Oh, so the first thing is getting the stuff from the chat.
Yeah.
Which is going to be quite difficult.
So just
on slide.
cut.
It's not going to be the same. I'm going to cut and paste for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a few things. I think I was commenting a lot. So my comments in the middle of it don't make it very nice.
That's okay. There's also in the mural, there's like 12 ideas in one chat thing, so they have to be separated. That's why when we type it into the chat, we say hit 1, hit enter. So each one is alone versus all
Right.
bunched
Right.
together. So
I
that's the
wasn't sure
downside
what
of
would be
Chatterfall.
easier. I wasn't sure what would be easier. Yeah.
Yeah. That's okay. Live and learn.
Okay.
Let me get rid of the other stuff in there. So it's-
I need to actually not be in presentation mode, right? Because I need to edit.
yeah.
so-
Don't need to share it.
I
Yeah,
liked the
share,
shared
but not-
chocolate.
Yeah, I like the chocolate too. The other day we were in a workshop and someone asked for chocolate and my colleague said, "We'll send you chocolate as an attachment." It was very funny.
So why don't I will take out the identifying information and you start the
Oh,
discussion.
thank you.
okay?
Thank you. Okay. So actually, so I'll let you do that, Nancy, and I can start working here. I'll start with writing things. And then if it gets too difficult, we'll start doing the
Okay.
numbering. Okay.
Okay.
So here's one thing that I think needs to get into creative destruction. I'm just going to say this right out. And Rissa, please suggest things, and Sue, because you're seeing something different than what I'm seeing, you might see things that you feel are missing. I think the creative destruction is for intro activities because we're right now in the middle of semester for most people, or in the Southern Hemisphere, they're finishing their semester. So intro activities, we've already got quite a few of those. I think there are other ideas. I don't think we need to worry too much about those. What do you think, Carissa?
I think that we have a lot. I don't really totally understand, I guess, what creative destruction is, because I don't really want those to go away, but we don't need to be
Yeah,
working
but we
on
don't
them
want to
anymore.
create new ones. Yeah, I'm
They're
thinking in
Right,
terms
right,
of
right.
future work. Yeah, it's already
So
there.
we're
It's good
future
enough.
work.
We don't
Okay,
need to
so we got
invest
it.
more in it. Yeah.
So creative destruction can also mean archiving kind of moments. Okay, I got it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think intro activities are kind of done.
No,
We need-
okay.
Yeah.
So that is maturity. That is
That's
maturity.
maturity, not creative
Yes.
destruction.
Creative
Yeah.
destruction
No,
means
well,
these
okay.
aren't working. We want to get rid of
So
them.
let me ask you about this. The liberating structures are doing really well, but there's so many left to do. And I think there's value in actually sometimes repeating them in different contexts. So I thought
Right.
that was maturity. Is that maturity or is that growth?
So there would be, I'd break it down. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
One is getting the portfolio up there, boom. Building depth on the practice, something different. And repetition is one
Adding
mechanism
more.
for building depth.
Yeah, but also just, adding new ones. And so these are two different things, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
adding new would be growth, and building depth, doing depth is maturity.
Well, but also what you were saying, Nancy, was that when you use the same liberating structure in new ways, that's still growth.
Yes. Once you formalize those variations and publish them, that would be maturity. So there's two levels here, okay? Do we have a practice of updating with riffs and variations? If yes, then that's immaturity. Are we actually doing it? Well, maybe it's not immaturity. Maybe it's still in birth, right? Have we completed the portfolio? No, we're not completed. It's still in birth. Are we deepening the portfolio that's already completed? That might be still gestation. That might be in birth, okay? So this is exactly the break it down issue.
Oops. Yeah.
And so
you're
the driver of where it gets placed. So one of the practices that's really useful is to call on people and say, okay, now, Clarissa, you pick one and tell us where to put it.
Yeah. Because I think that intro activities is probably too broad of a category, because some people are using that as ongoing stuff.
Right. So it is just maturity then.
So but it's only some of them, because we're gonna have
but
some of them.
we're not going to
using,
remove any.
No, but people are also using them as like some of the intro
Warm-ups.
activities that we're doing. They're warm-ups or they're ongoing.
Okay. I see what you mean.
Do you see what I'm saying?
So your categorization,
so-
do you feel your categorization of those things is immaturity? The categories are working, people understand where to find things?
Oh, so maybe I think we need to refine the categories, because like Chris is saying, some of the things are labeled intro, but they can work as warm-up as well.
Right.
So where would
your
that go?
taxonomy might still need some revision.
So that would need a new post-it note that says taxonomy. That's birth.
Yeah. Where would birth? Okay.
Or
I put that in
growth.
birth. Yeah, because you're already doing some of it. You just need to do more of it.
Yeah.
And some things never get into maturity because of the nature of the work, right?
Right.
So as Sue would tell you, if she was looking
Someone
at
has
this
to
from
do
a
it.
leadership perspective, there's some of our practices that will always be in birth, that because what we need to do changes, they never get into maturity.
Right.
It's just what it is.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So here's something where I think we're in a rigidity trap. And I'll explain what's going on, and then Nancy can tell me if I'm understanding this correctly. So the transcription thing, Zoom and YouTube both create auto transcripts, and then someone needs to edit those. So at the beginning, Autumn and I were doing that. And I'm like, this is not a good use of my time. Like it's okay, but it's like, really, I could be doing 3 other videos, And so we had an intern at OneHE do the transcripts at that point, and then he's leaving. And so I feel like this is something we have 8 videos that are ready to go, but waiting for the transcription to be edited. And we feel strongly that the transcript has to be edited. so that in case someone needs that.
So I would
yeah.
say you've got a roles and resources issue there.
So is it a, what
So,
is it,
we've
is it a-
defined now this role, and now we need to resource that role. So, and an intern, if the intern rolls over, then we have to have capacity building for the next intern to know how to do it, if that's going to be our strategy. Or do we want to find someone who will pay for it or whatever it is?
So where does that go here?
Why do you need transcripts?
Because someone may have hearing difficulties or not be a native speaker of the language, so they need,
Yeah.
it's a closed captioning. It's not really a transcript, it's the closed captioning on the videos, so that when someone's
ADA moment.
watching,
Okay,
yeah, it's a disability, yeah,
so it's an actual technical skill to put
it's an
the,
accessibility thing. It's very simple because it's auto-generated and you just edit the text. It's
You
really,
clean
really,
it up.
you don't need to train someone to do it. It'll take 5 minutes to train them, but
Okay,
they have
then
to
you need to
go
find
through the
interns.
process.
Then you need to find interns.
I know, but I
That's
don't
the
have
item.
money, so they have to pay for it. So
Okay,
I have to tell them to pay for it, but I don't have that kind of authority over them to tell them to pay for
What
it.
you can do is develop a budget that tells what it costs to maintain and develop this site.
So where do I do this? Do we have a rigidity trap or a poverty trap, or what do we have?
isn't it finding somebody? Is that is that birth in a sense that why
I'm going to
it's
keep them in the breakout rooms until we finish this discussion.
Well, no, I actually think we shouldn't, because I'm looking in there. I think they're struggling with the same thing, right? Okay.
Okay.
And I think
So
it's
I'm
an
going to write
important-
it somewhere and not put it in the,
Yeah.
so budget for transcripts at least.
Yeah. And I think,
Yeah.
responsibilities.
Yeah,
Understand
I think
takes to
I
do
think it's
this.
an overall budget, right? I'm sorry to interrupt you, Nancy.
Yeah, because we had a small budget at the beginning just to get us started, and then I think they need to invest
Here they
more
come.
money into this. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's two things, right? It's budget and a transcription role.
Yeah. So both, you think they're two different things, but I don't know where to
Yeah.
put them.
Okay. Time out.
Okay. All right.
Maha wanted more time, and you need more time for this. It can't be done in 10 minutes, but I wanted to come back to the I've got to turn that timer off. When people are working initially, there's a lot of questions about what goes where and how to break it down to what level. And one of the things you may discover is you're trying to ecocycle too many things in one ecocycle. Okay. So I had some sense here, and I'm curious whether you guys were running into that in the mural instance of, I'm having apples and oranges here, and I'm not sure I have a lens to sort things out. So, why don't one person, and maybe other than Maha, because Maha's been driving, and just share where we're at, and then same for the mural group. And we might want to share screens, and just what are you running into?
So mural group, you guys go. Yeah. I think you guys go first. Maybe. Yeah, Autumn or Hoda?
All right, so should I go?
Can you share? Yeah, can you share this?
Well, I can't get into the mural, so you need
Yeah.
to screen
There
share.
I think the setting required an account so I was able to I was the only one that was able to get into the mural. So
poop.
we
I'll go check
we only,
that.
yeah, we were only able to do a couple, but I think we did spend some time discussing where on the cycle things should be placed, and different people having different perspectives on where it should go. And I think we seem to be, I mean, with a small group, I think it's easier to build more consensus. I think, like you said, with a large group, you might have a problem with consensus building. But I think with a small group, it worked well. It's nice on Mural as a platform, but the quadrant seemed pretty straightforward to me, but I think it could get complex when you get things that are more abstract or that need more definition beyond the initial brainstorming. So when the insights around the activities need to be refined before they go into the cycle, or when there's some confusion about what certain things mean. So I think overall, Autumn or Leanne, Irene, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think Hoda, you hit the nail on the head with that. So when people put their activities down, you might need to unpack them slightly more to make them a bit more specific. Otherwise, you're going to have this non-consensus of where it goes, because it's going to have different meanings to different people for different people. What I'm also noticing is that I think we need to be very clear as to what the quadrants actually mean, because maybe maturity for one person might mean something different to another. So does it mean it's being used, or has it been used for a long time, or how it's being used? So we need to be, and then if something's in growth, for example, is it like just outside the poverty trap, or is it closer to the middle of that infinity sign? And there was some confusion as to actually how the arrows are moving. Are they going back and forth or around? So I think setting it up, we need to be really clear as to, everyone needs to be on the same page of that. I don't know how we can get.
Can I ask a question that's it's running through my head right now, in sense of, we're doing this analysis so that we can take some kind of action to help us reach our purpose better. So what I was thinking is, something that's in gestation is an idea that we've decided is a good idea that needs resources in order to be birthed, right? And something that's at birth is something that, is that not what it means?
No, because things are at the beginning of gestation, maybe wild ideas. You know, if you have 20
so
different
they may
ideas
not be things we've agreed on.
Yes, agreement
Okay.
and first steps. Okay. So I'm going to give a little thank you to this group. I want to just make an observation here.
I like that. I like
Isn't
that
that awesome?
celebration thing.
I
We
love
don't have that in Google.
There's a little, when you hover over your, if you're the owner of the space, you hover over it and it says celebrate, and then boom, it does it.
Very nice.
I apologize. I gave you guys the wrong link and I've made that mistake.
It's a mural thing.
It's a mural thing. So one of the things when I'm doing Ecocycle, I send people out for a few minutes, let them struggle with it, and then come back. Okay. If I'm in the room, I'm walking from group to group and helping them with those specific things. Online, I can't do that. So it's really important not to put people away for too much time, because they can get lost unless you have two, you know, a facilitator can go with each group. Because in answering these very specific kinds of questions with the real work is when it becomes clear. But if you give all that set up beforehand, it's no one, you don't retain it all. So Leanne, your observation about language and stuff is most successful when it's done in context of doing it. So go into breakout groups, try it, come back. Oh yeah, I didn't get that at all. Oh, now I get it. And you'll see these little turning points when people can begin to again see what you meant, and then act on what you meant. So Maha, do you want to give a brief update on the Google variation?
Yeah. So first of all, the thing that you were saying towards the end there, that we were doing apples and oranges, is that we were talking about particular actual content that we have there, but we were also talking about logistics. And so that combination probably needs to be separated, right? So like what new content do we need to be working on? Oh, like liberating structures is popular, we'll do that. Interactivities, we don't need to add anymore, for example. But then there were these other logistics about announcing practice times, and about, we got into the taxonomy and the organization of the website, that it might need some revision. And then the budget, like recognizing that we had a fixed budget to kick us off, but that maybe they need to invest a little bit more, and that like the intern is leaving, who's going to do the captions, but we still don't know where to put that, Nancy. Where do we put that?
Yeah, that typically means like, okay, you need to break it down.
If I don't know
I would
where to
say,
put it?
do we have an ongoing budget? We need to create an ongoing sustaining budget. So I put it over in gestation. Yeah.
Okay, and the intern, we had one and they're gone, so it's as if we had someone who died and now we have to replace them.
But you have learned that an intern can do it.
Yes. So what's that? Poverty trap, because the resource is missing, but we know the idea works.
It could be, or it could be just let's keep a list that we need to get new interns. I mean, if you're mixing apples and oranges and you're getting down to too fine a grain, it becomes overwhelming. So sometimes I do this, it's easier to do in Mural. I'll put a little text box off to the side and I just put insights there. Okay. It's not that they belong in any one place, they're an insight. So,
but we've learned something that we can do something about, right? It doesn't really matter where it goes right now.
Or it's
sustainability, I guess, in general is an issue.
And the other thing is, so let's pretend we got all of our Post-it notes up there. And it's really important to leave time for like, what do we see about this? So we didn't get them all up there. So the analysis part's going to be harder, but for a demo, you know, we can, and Ecocycle does take some time. Let's just be honest. Okay. It's not a 10
And also
minute.
matching the two Ecocycles, especially if they're on different tools.
I wouldn't do the two on different tools. You know, if you were doing multiple breakouts, I'd stick with one tool. And it's harder to compile on Google Docs than it is on Mural. It's much easier to compile on Mural. So, you know, personally, if people can turn off their videos and get enough bandwidth to do Mural, I would do it. Or you can screen share and have a couple of drivers in Mural and everyone else is watching. You don't want everybody moving everything at the same time in a large group. Been there, done that.
Yeah,
not
not
useful.
good. Not good. Yeah.
But, you know, let's just pretend, let's stay in the Google Doc for a second. So what do we notice about what's mapped so far?
There's nothing in creative destruction.
We didn't get that far.
Yeah, I thought the intro activities would go to creative destruction, but you guys told me that's not where it belongs. So creative destruction would be something that we actually completely stopped doing altogether because it's not helping us towards our purpose.
Don't you need like some maturity of something to make that a possibility? Right.
So we haven't been around long enough.
And we haven't, like, it hasn't been around that long.
It could be that like after 5 years, we're looking at it and we're like, no one ever uses this one.
Yes.
Right. So
yeah. So a new initiative will probably have only some things in maturity and maybe nothing in creative destruction. But if you look at this 6 months from now, it should look different, right? Because it's a developmental view. It's not, you know, just the tasks. It's how those tasks contribute to the purpose. And if we say, like, listen, we've plateaued and we're not getting anyone else and they're not using these things, what isn't adding value? Then the discussion about creative destruction becomes much, much more on purpose, important on purpose and important. And early on, you would expect to see a lot of stuff on that left-hand side. That's the innovation cycle side.
Yeah. And I guess actually there's some of, like you're saying, gestation can just be wild ideas. They might go straight to you can argue them out that actually we can't afford to do that, or I don't think that'll be the best, and that could go directly to creative destruction.
Oh yeah, there's cycles within these.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You try something out, it didn't work. Okay. So, but in the early part, you are spending a lot of stuff here. And then, you know, when something really cooks, then you move it up here. But there may not be a lot right now.
It doesn't cook. Yeah.
It's still raw.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about, this is really heretical what I'm going to say right now. So that's a creative destruction. I love Ecocycle, but I think what I'm going to suggest here is almost destroying it, but hear me out. Okay. If you were trying to do this in a simpler way, to just make it more accessible to like younger people or something like that, and not to say that undergraduate wouldn't understand this, they would, but just to make it a faster thing to do, could you make it sort of like continue doing these things, they're working well, stop doing these things, they're not helping, and modify these things and start doing these things that you're not doing, and just call them that? Like if they're giving feedback to a teacher on how well the course is going, for example, rather than revamping a curriculum.
If it's a fairly simple context and there's not a lot of interdependencies around those things, that's perfectly acceptable. You know, the stop, start, change, you know, plus minus delta is a long-term thing. In a complex environment, when you start reducing those to those three categories, you can often miss signals. So I think each cycle is about when things are messy, when things are unpredictable. Okay. It's not a feedback mechanism. It's an analysis.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you mean. Yeah. I hear what you're saying.
So one of the things that if I was to go to students, I'd do a what, so what, now what with them. And then I would take that data and eco-cycle my practice. Okay.
Right. This is what I've actually found, that eco-cycling on my own has been helpful. Because I could never get my department to do it. So I just ended up doing it on my own and sharing out my own insights.
So let me share
go ahead.
two short stories. One is we've been eco-cycling 4 different grantees in a portfolio from a grant provider. And they're trying to develop a community of practice across the groups. And, everybody thinks, oh yeah, we should do that. We have so much to learn from each other. It's just, as we say here in the US, it's a mom and apple pie. Who could say no to that? But no one makes time for it because they couldn't find the interdependencies, enough specificity to understand, this and I don't know it and I want to get together. You're in maturity there. I'm in gestation. I'd like to have some advice before I start into birth. We're both struggling with the resource trap. Let's work on it together. We're both struggling with the rigidity trap. Let's work on it together. When we look across different ecocycles, it gives us a way to tell the story of our work with sufficient specificity to figure out where we might do something together. The other place where it has been very powerful is when the frontline practitioners ecocycle their portfolio, and then they have to tell a narrative of that ecocycle. So I'm trying to think if I've got one that I can share that won't, well, I think I might. So give me 1 second. I see if I can find this mural. It's an ecocycle of some liberating structures practice, but I can't remember where we did it. Oh, this is what happens when you do things on the run. Oh, there it is. Okay. So I'm going to screen share here for a moment. And this is old and not up to date, but so we were looking at the practice group for the Seattle meetup group because it's now gone virtual. It's now kind of a global liberating structures meetup group. And we were having trouble because Keith and Fisher were kind of carrying all the water, as we say. But it was hard for other people, excuse me, let me turn that off. It was hard for other people to contribute because they really didn't understand what was involved in the practice. And after doing this, and the colors started out meaning something, but over time it was not so relevant, but because we pulled them from different ecocycles. They decided, these are things we have to do. And there was a lot of stuff that was really important to stick in the stuck area. And whoops, I just moved the wrong thing. And then there was some of the stuff in creative destruction ended up kicking off a conversation that changed a lot of stuff. It's not reflected here, but there was like, why are you putting welcome host participants in arrival in creative destruction? It's because how we did it face-to-face meant something, and how we were doing it online didn't create the same results, right? So it's that conversation about that piece that opened up possibilities. And looking at the patterns across an ecocycle, this one is fairly well spread out, but we weren't really thinking about how to resource that left side. And the right side was all 1 or 2 people. So it's like broaden the group and share roles differently. So those are kind of 2 meta conversations that, and they've put it into plan. They did, what's our 15% solution? What's our next step? Now they have rotating hosts. A different person is in charge of the platform than before. This person who's doing the calendar is going to do it in a different way that could make, because it's gone from, geographically local to basically a global community of practice. And they've addressed it. And now they have their monthly meeting, and they actually somebody came in and made some changes in this. I'm not in this group, but they've attached comments here. I'm not quite sure. So they could get in there, and people who weren't around could add stuff later on.
Can you get their permission that we use this? Because otherwise this is on a public video. Do you think they would?
I'm the one who set it up, so I'll give you permission. It's on my mural. I don't think there's anything here that's proprietary at all. This is a very
but I mean, okay, fine. All right. Yeah,
I'm a member of the group. So. I gave you permission.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So that analysis level is really important, and you're looking for patterns. So where there's agreement or disagreement, where there's gaps, where there's things stuck in the traps, and then you say, what's now made possible? Once we've learned this, what is made possible? So you guys may see one thing that needs to be made possible is we need to solve this intern closed captioning thing, because if we're backing up great content and it's not getting online, that should be, that's a doable thing. We should figure something out and do that next. this thing over here is a little more complicated, or it might be complex. We need to approach that problem in a different way.
Yeah.
And you
I
can
think we're
actually,
gonna have to get them into an Ecocycle session.
you can actually develop, we're developing strategic plans out of Ecocycles, pairing it with the kind of 6 questions from KNOT, working, not working. In fact, that's what Sue's going to use with the folks we're going to be working with Leanne in the agriculture. So it's also then think about, okay, what are our indicators about how something moves? And it becomes your ability to look at this as an assessment. So we revisit it regularly, it's not a one and done. I mean, you could use it as a one and done, but it's really powerful to use it on an ongoing basis. And when it's visible.
And think about, are these things still where they belong, rather than start from a blank canvas and then
where
see what you need to add.
What it comes off, it's done, it's irrelevant. You know, paying attention to the traps, being able to tell the story. So, oh, I didn't tell the story. So when you tell the story of an Ecocycle to, like, let's say your manager. So if Maha, you had Ecocycle this project and you needed to tell this to Hoda, how you tell the story is very revealing. So I was working with a bunch of folks in fire adaptive communities. So in the west of the US and other parts of the US, but there are many fire prone communities, and there's an approach called fire adaptive versus preventing fires, because fires are actually ecologically required at some level, right? And so we came in thinking we were doing one thing, and the Ecocycle said that, wait a minute, we've actually moved beyond that. We've already achieved that. We need to be over here. So they changed their Ecocycle, and then I had the leader stand up with a video. We played the video and I said, tell the story. And as she was telling the story, new insights are actually coming out. And she says, stop the recording. Actually, I said that a little too baldly. I need to say that in a little more gentle way, but I just saw something that really needs to come to the attention of our membership and our leadership. I need to rethink how I said it, but it is the issue. So the narrative of telling the story of your Ecocycle can sometimes be as powerful as the Ecocycle itself, because it frames the whole thing, the complex view, in a way that people can actually understand. And typically I start in maturity and tell the story that way. Now, you guys are new. You might tell your story in gestation and birth, okay? If you're about to end a program, it might start in creative destruction.
I think I started in creative destruction. Can I tell you this very quick story? I went to this liberating structures immersion session, and then I went the next day to Hoda. I'm like, you know what, Hoda, we need to stop doing the webinars the way we've been doing them. I have another idea. Let's meet and I'll show you. So I did, I think, Spiral and Matt T and a couple of things with them. And then we tried it with the department. We're like, okay, we're revamping all our workshops. So it was creative destruction with gestation.
Very fast.
And then, yeah. So I just went through that. And but she's a good boss because she was very open to it. Like, I think if you did that with anyone else, I think they'd be like, what are you saying? You know?
So you're now hinting about an advanced practice, which is panarchy, where you're looking at the levels you're ecocycling on, from kind of molecular to the cosmos. So you can look at ecocycles and find out the patterns across them, or you can layer ecocycles in the same level and understand what is similar and different. So, you know, this is really one of those tools that you can use it one way, and then you find a deeper way and a deeper way and a deeper way. And then you become obsessed with it like I am. I mean, it is like literally central to my practice, and people want more once they've had that little moment of their brain seeing it differently. And that's why actually doing it, and the first time, is debrief it along the way. Don't wait till the end, because there's some people who get so lost. And I got lost like the first 3 times. I'm one of those people who got lost. And I just like, I don't get it. It's like, why are you doing this? Because it's those moments in conversation when you discover something and see it in a new way that open and unlock possibilities. And that's why I love Ecocycle.
Oh, that sounds like a lovely ending, but I do want people to give us any last minute feedback or insights on how they might use it. People can't see the chat, but Autumn and Rissa and Hoda and I are all making plans for what we're going to Ecocycle for all the projects that we do together. We have like plans now. Yeah, and people are. Yeah, go ahead.
Nancy.
Go ahead.
So when you're doing these, I guess it like on a more official level, I'm really interested in the creative destruction space. And does that ever just turn out to be destruction? Does that ever just be like, okay, this project or whatever has just kind of, it's not going to continue? Is that a possibility? Does that ever happen?
Yes, it's a possibility. It happened with a client who was doing their strategic planning. It's a research institute at one of the Seattle hospitals, nationally, internationally known research center. And they were doing things that actually other people should be doing, and it was keeping them from innovating. So they were known as innovators, but they'd stopped innovating because they were scaling out a successful program. And the fact was, they're not in the business of scaling out a successful program. They're supposed to be looking over the next horizon. That's what innovation is about. It's not about staying right here. So this was a huge success, but it needed to be in creative destruction. And one of the things that we've learned is you need to celebrate the things you're destroying sometimes. You need to claim the value it created, claim the joy that the collaboration created, claim the terrible things you got through in order to make it work. And it's almost like a mini funeral, okay?
Yeah.
When we don't honor the closing of something, it can leave a lot of baggage that's going to keep us from going in those other parts. So creative destruction can be a form of celebration, okay? It could be a funeral. It's not about who stops doing it. It's about, this is its time, because it's always connected to purpose. If scaling keeps us from being innovators, then we have to stop spending all our energy scaling. And there are other people who could do it.
I've had so many projects that it's just been like, or communities, I don't know exactly what to call them, right? But they get to a certain point and it's like, it's time to let it go. And it's so hard for people to do that. And sometimes that letting go is actually a change into something new, but sometimes it's really just letting it go. So I really appreciate that this respects that cycle. And makes that a part of things, because I think also, you know, unrestricted growth isn't good either. I think you talked about some of that at the beginning, right? That's a cancer. That's something that's not good either. So I love this. Thank you so much for sharing this. This is really, really.
Add some comments and then we need to close off the video.
Sorry.
So, Rissa, do you want to go first?
Oh, sure. I was just saying that I think that this would be really helpful for reflective practice too, to kind of come up with research plans. It'd be really good for your research program to think about, like, especially the creative destruction, because it helps you not only see the holes in what you have been doing and what might be missing, but it also helps you see what needs to move on. But for me, I don't do research formally always. So I was thinking it would also be good for teaching, for a pedagogical view of what's working and what isn't working, and what you need to move on.
Right. And Hoda, you had a comment as well.
Yeah. I was also thinking about how in group planning, in inclusive leadership, the consensus building, you know, the power of Ecocycle planning is everyone's voice being included in contributing, at least to the process, where, you know, it's very visual. Everything is laid out on the table. Everyone has some place to contribute. And in the creative destruction space, you know, you can't use the destruction without the creative. So having them coupled, they need to be coupled in a sense, and explaining that very clearly, finding a way so that everyone understands really the spirit of creative destruction, that it gives rise to, it births, you know, new ideas and new opportunities for people. Like you said, you know, you're not getting rid of people or functions, you're creating new opportunities for other people as well.
Cool. Hey, thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed it and learned as much as I did. My brain is exploding, as every time that I do Ecocycle, my brain explodes. Nancy, do you want to say anything to finish us off?
If you Google Ecocycle and liberating structures, you'll find many practitioners have written up their experiences, and there are lots of ways to do this. There's lots of subtleties or riffs and variations that can be really useful. So once you've done it a few times, kind of buy the book explore those things, because it is in that nuance that we begin to see new possibilities.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nancy, and thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop the recording.